Namaskar and welcome to this exciting episode of Sattology, debunking mythology. Sattology means science of truth, the study of truth, and mythology means science of study of fake, lie, or imagination. So today we have very special guest, my friend, and I always bring him on immediately because everyone loves him. So let us welcome Abhijit Iyer Mitra. Abhijit, welcome.
Namaste.
Nobody can take it. We have to, we have to, you have to stay who you are. Okay,
Yeah,
anyway.
yeah.
Abhijit, the Indian foreign minister's visit is being followed by many campuses in a very, like, people are studying him and people are commenting on him, and they find that one man is so much changed the outlook on Indian foreign service, because before that they used to think that the Indian foreign service external affairs minister or foreign minister used to always be very quiet, but this one talks and openly talks in plain English, like what Americans would love to hear or want to hear. So, what is your view on this?
Look, he's always been very good at talking. My issue has always been what are the systemic reforms he brings? Because, see, if you say that Indian diplomats do not talk, they're very quiet, they don't engage, what systemic changes has he brought about to ensure that they do? Nothing. Has he expanded the foreign service? No, it's still stuck that grade A diplomat or whatever it is. The total numbers have come down, in fact. So you're completely overworked, overstretched. There is no accountability there. There is no engagement out there. People who engage with the embassy or consulates are still just as uh, uh, victims of non-responsiveness, so to say, as they were before. So, talking is fine, but talking has to be backed up with action. I see this is a standard line with this government. There's a lot of talk, and the action is very far and few between and not systemic and not grounded.
So, after Dr. Jayashankar visited uh, he had the meeting with the Indian Americans where they made those famous statements about the openness or the biasness of American media. He then was invited to Pentagon, and where he was accorded a welcome like a head of the state. Normally, the
No, he wasn't. It was a normal welcome for any foreign minister.
oh, for anyone. Okay, I didn't know that. I'm just saying. And then the F-16 conversations happened, and the India said very strongly over there too that the F-16s, the money being given to Pakistan may be misused against India. So
Hmm.
what do you think is actually that money is meant for, and how does it strengthen Pakistan or how does it affect India?
It's not money, it's upgrades being given to their, it's not upgrades, it's a sustainment package. So spares and things like that being given to their F-16s. Now, the thing is, you have a intelligence sharing agreement, you have an information sharing agreement with America. How did you wake up to this after the announcement was already publicly made? See, my thing is a good foreign service never gets caught with its pants down when an announcement is made in public and then you have to start defending it at the causing either loss of face to you or loss of face to the other person. We should have known about this before. We already have a dialogue mechanism, and we should have had that dialogue mechanism. We should have included right in the beginning what they're planning on doing with Pakistan. What happened to the dialogue mechanisms? There are already three, four, five. The number of track twos that the Americans and Indians do, there's almost a track two every single week. And those aren't even track twos, they're track 1.5s. You have a systemic engagement with the Pentagon and the Indian Defense Ministry and the State Department. And they just had the 2+2 meeting, didn't they? The defense and foreign minister and their defense and foreign minister. What were they doing? Masturbating.
You know, see, one of the things, you are absolutely right. The intelligence agencies must be knowing about it because there's something going on, and then they would be knowing such a big deal being announced. So looks like it's just a putting a bandage. US is also doing it, India is also doing it, and we are all reading in the newspapers, and some people are celebrating also. But you are right. that they should have known about it beforehand. You're absolutely right over there. And the one question which comes in the mind now, see the you have you have commented a lot on President Biden and the Kamala Harris, and we have all spoken a lot. The Russia for the this is the third mobilization in their history ever. First was World War One, second was World War Two, and third is this one. And President Putin also said, "I'm not bluffing." He said it, and so the looks like that everyone, and I was watching many news reports yesterday, that everyone is concerned, but at the same time people who mattered are not really concerned. So is this just for optics, or Russia will be serious like they have said last time they are going to invade Ukraine?
Look, there's nothing more dangerous than a cornered rat. Okay, because Russia never gives a damn how brutal, crazy, or nasty its leader is as long as he's victorious. There has never been a victorious czar who has ever been removed from office. There has never been a czar who has lost, who hasn't paid a heavy price for it. And by czar, I include commissars, right? So Lenin, Stalin, what have you. Remember the moment Khrushchev had his ass whooped in Cuba, for all effects and purposes, it wasn't a military loss. It was it was a huge diplomatic loss and a political loss. Uh, there was a coup against him, and then he was shafted into house arrest somewhere, God knows where, died in anonymity, right? So you have to understand that one thing that Putin understands is at least his own history. Now, you can call his sense of history convoluted, whatever. And, for me, convoluted is just a code word for inconvenient because anybody can have their own interpretation of history. Your interpretation isn't the only interpretation. So they have their interpretations of history. And I think he, of all people, would know that very well. So you want to push him to that level? Fine, go ahead. Uh, I'm perfectly fine with it because whatever he does, he's not going to do anything to India, right? What he does is going to be to Europe and America, and great. I mean, I hope you're prepared for what you're going to get. I wouldn't take it so lightly. I would take it very, very seriously. Um, but best of luck to America. I hope all your dreams come true.
I like the sarcasm there, but you are being honest over there because you analyze from the world point of view and also India centric point of view. So the one of the I really I'm really worried about the American politicians, policymakers. They are taking it so lightly, like it's just another Ukraine. But this is America. He's directly talking, and he's also said hitting American cities directly, and they have the capacity to do it. They have means to do it, and they have also
Look,
mobilized.
to be fair, he's not going to go in for a nuclear strike on American cities. But now, after the referendum, which let's all be clear, it's going to go overwhelmingly in Russia's favor, and Russia is effectively going to annex eastern Ukraine, the entire Donbass, like it did Crimea. Uh, if this now becomes a direct attack on Russia, it will effectively be an attack on Russia with NATO support, with NATO reconnaissance, with NATO training, which would be unprecedented. In that case, I personally, and the worse the war goes for Putin, the higher the chances of tactical nuclear weapons in the battlefield. And that's very, very, very problematic.
So just explain a little bit for the viewers. You and I read a lot, but viewers may not know. What's the difference between a tactical nuclear weapon and a strategic nuclear weapon?
Okay. So basically, you have these concepts of counter force and counter value. Counter value is blowing up your cities. Counter force is blowing up your military installations. Now, the thing is, counter force, it depends. If you are losing on the battlefield and you want something to neutralize that, what you end up doing is you use an extremely, and the Pakistanis have the perfect terminology for this. It's called low yield weapons. And they are between like 2 to 5 kilotons. But they kill a lot of people in that small area. So you may be sitting in a tank, but unless that tank, or right now all the damage is being caused by HIMARS and things like that. If you irradiate the area around a HIMARS, it becomes very problematic because the soldiers supporting it and things like that die. The crews inside the HIMARS cabin would be perfectly safe. What about the support crews and things? Ukraine does not have that sort of nuclear, chemical, biological weapons. At least I haven't seen them having that capability. And it's certainly something that comes into play, and it's certainly something that Putin will justify historically. Because remember, America used nuclear weapons in Japan, right, to bring the war to a quick end. Exact quote. So why can't Russia use nuclear weapons to bring the war to a quick end?
Absolutely right. Like the you know the conversation that I'm hearing in the campuses and other places is, oh, this is going to be just US can manage it and US has enough resources and people are not worrying, but the stock market is reacting.
I used to have this friend, he died in a road crash. He was a fantastic driver. Okay. And I used to keep telling him, careful, slow down, slow down. And he said, I'm the best driver in the world. He wanted to try out for F1 and all that crap, and he died. Because, see, you dying is not dependent on you being the best driver. It also has to be that everybody else on the road is also a very good driver to accommodate your fantastic driving. So if the guy in the traffic coming opposite you is a really crappy driver, you're still dead. It doesn't matter how good a driver you are. So America might have all that, and I have no doubt that America has all the resources to win this. The question is, have you, and by your own, I don't think Putin is a madman. I think he's losing it, but he's not mad. Uh, have you accounted for the fact that you might actually be right? Because right now, what I'm seeing is America takes all these decisions based on the assumption that Putin is not mad and he's a rational actor and he will not escalate. What if the Americans have been right all along? He is a madman and he's going to go crazy in his escalation. What do you do then? So this is an old policy that America has used, be it in Afghanistan or Ukraine, of bleeding their enemies dry in a sort of urban battlefield. Afghanistan hasn't recovered, right? Afghanistan, it's been what? How many years? When did the Intifada? When did the Afghan Jihad end? 1990, right? 89. 89, 99. Well, let's say 1990. It's been what? 32 years. Afghanistan simply hasn't recovered as a society. Whatever the outcome of this, Ukraine is not going to recover as a society.
There have been a lot of false propagandas also in the campuses where everyone had to put on that Ukrainian flag, and it was like a forced kind of thing that if you don't show solidarity with Ukrainians, you are no longer. And I was looking at the Puerto Rico is one of the territories of the US, where the Fiona hit, Hurricane Fiona, the amount of aid which the American mainland gave to Puerto Rico was 10% of what they gave to Ukraine, less than 10%. Ukraine, they have given around $84 billion, and out of $12 billion going more, almost $100 billion now for buying American weapons and American resources. So, people can contrast this, that how much money, a taxpayer's money, has gone to a non-American territory as compared to Puerto
But
Rico.
why does this surprise you? Iraq, Afghanistan,
True,
they were all about all these contractor companies and weapons companies getting contracts, right?
true, true.
Uh, for weapons contractors, it was a huge boon for land systems contractors because they switched from heavy armor to MRAPs, and they came around with about 12, 13 different versions of MRAP being a mine resistant armored protected vehicle. Which is higher and has side protection, more like an armored truck, really, height from the ground with a V-shaped hull, so that if a mine goes off at the bottom, it kind of directs the blast away. It's high enough etc. It was fantastic for them. A lot of people that I know made, I know a fellow who was a good for nothing, uh, who literally bought a fantastic flat in the outskirts of New York, not flat, sorry, house, uh, 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 ranch almost. I won't call it a ranch, condo. Uh, by Indian standards, 2-3 acres is quite huge. Apparently it's a normal plot size out there. For me, 2-3 acres here, even half an acre is a farm in Delhi. I mean, you have a quarter-acre farms in Delhi. So for me, it's a ranch. It's a condo. He went to college with me. Australian guy settled in America. Uh, he did really well for himself. He's set for life. I'm sure a lot of arms contractors made a lot of money out of it. So it's fantastic for some people. Remember, just like COVID and the recession, it's fantastic for some people who have budgeted for it. It's not very good for a lot of other people, right? But tell me, how far have you seen that the war economy has been part of America's planning for a very long time now? Be it Libya, be it Iraq, be it Afghanistan, wherever, it's been an extremely important part of stimulating industrial demand and things like that. And in this case, Americans aren't dying. So it's the best of both worlds. You get to stimulate demand in America, use public money on weapons, which nobody else would be buying at the moment. And no Americans dead, so nothing to worry about. A completely crony capitalist corrupt government in Ukraine that keeps blowing up the money, a completely incompetent, even more crony capitalist enemy who is so stupid that he actually blew all his chances one after the other and still does not seem to have learned any lessons. It's like the American dream come true. Yay! We got a moron of an enemy. We got a cocaine addict of an ally. We got no body bags coming home. We got unquestioned, unlimited tax money to spend on feeding the cokehead with cocaine. What more do you want?
You know, yeah, as an international analyst, you see the world from different data points than most Americans do. And this show is particularly meant for giving that particular viewpoint to our students as well, who would like to see what others think about the whole situation.
I'm very happy with what America is doing. I'm very happy. I want America to do more of this because the more you do this, you don't see this, it's going to exacerbate the decline of America. Okay, so if you want to dig your own grave, go ahead. We have this thing in Hinduism, you'll know this better than anybody else. If somebody else is making a mistake, just sit back and let them do it. So I just sit back and let them do it, and China is going to become ascendant for all their faults. I would any day pick Pax America, Pax Americana over Pax Seneca. And I can bet you the Chinese are just sitting there salivating at the prospects of this. And I'm just sitting here being very, very happy because as a great aficionado of history, I finally understand how Rome fell. Rome, when it was falling, it didn't even understand it was falling because there were so many micro events and macro events happening, which it didn't weave into itself. And I'm so glad to be born in an era where an empire is collapsing itself from within and without. Okay, where it strengthens its worst enemy, China, by number two. Essentially, the mistake we make. What Russia is to America is what Pakistan is to India. The immediate obscurantist revisionist threat, whereas China gets away with everything, doesn't get into any wars or anything, and keeps growing. Right. So I'm blessed to be living in this period of history. There's nothing more interesting than to live through the beginnings of the collapse of an empire.
I mean, you and I have lived, like, I'm 45, and you and I have lived through many changes in the history. 91, we saw We saw 70,
But see, I wasn't old enough to understand what had gone wrong with the USSR. We also didn't have the kind of social media, micro detail, and international media to tell you what was happening in the USSR when it fell. Whereas here, you're literally analyzing it with great micro detail. When I see the American think tank circuit and the conversations around Ukraine, and mind you, America will lose this even if it wins it. It can completely humiliate Russia in Ukraine, and it will still be a loss for America, ultimately. Great tactical victory. You keep winning the battles and you lose the war, kind of thing. So, congratulations. But when I look at this sort of American groupthink that happens, it really reminds me of what Gorbachev's inner circle was thinking in those days when the USSR collapsed. And I can totally see where that's coming from.
Recently when Gorbachev passed away, we
Good
saw how
riddance.
the Russian state, they did not attend the ceremony. Like the
Yeah.
whole thing was quite,
Gorbachev was hated in Russia. In fact, even in the countries that he so-called liberated, Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania, Ukraine, and all of that, they hated him. They actually hated him. And why would you not? Because all it brought was misery and nothing else. Right? The Russian economy collapsed, that surety of life was gone. Russia takes a very, very dim view of people like Gorbachev who fall for the West. I've told you this before, right? He isn't the first clown. Stalin, in fact, is a lot more popular than Lenin. You know why? Because Lenin was the one who signed the Treaty of Brest-Litovsk, which was complete Russian humiliation. And all Russia had to do was hold out for another 6 months before the battle was lost. Everybody knew Germany was losing. It was just a question of when. Before that, there was the miracle of the House of Brandenburg, where, Catherine the Great's husband, literally after surrounding Berlin, probably would have killed Frederick the Great, so-called Great. Uh, he literally gives all the land back to Prussia, Germany, and because he's a great admirer of Frederick. So Russia has an old history of these useful idiots who they detest. And so when Frederick the Great was killed by his own wife, Catherine the Great, uh, they were thrilled. And Catherine the Great wasn't so great. She was really nasty. But they love her. Why? Because she didn't do the kind of stupid things that the husband did. Stalin killed off, well, I mean, cumulatively, he would have killed off about 20, 30 million Russians, citizens of the USSR, not just Russians. But I've not seen the kind of hatred about him. You may hate him, I hate him, great. But average Russians, no. Lenin, they don't have much good to say about him. Isn't it amazing that Gorbachev, who killed nobody, is hated more than Stalin, who killed 30 million?
I mean, it's astonishing. It's astonishing. I was part of the campus. I'm on the board of many universities now, and I was invited to speak, but I was flabbergasted to hear what I was hearing. The moral, the I was seeing the academics talking about how great the American civilization is, and
But it
luckily
is.
it is. I mean, I have no problem in what seeing, because I came here because America was prosperous. The point was, and I am very pro Native Americans. I somehow, it's my heart goes in, but my whole point is the European settlers came out to search for Indians. I've written a whole book on that, and they discovered USA, and gradually Columbus and all those people, they came here. And America is a Portuguese name. Amerigo Vescopuli is a Portuguese name.
It's Pucci, Italian,
Which,
not Portuguese.
well, anyway, so whatever the name is a European name, Amerigo. And the traditional name for this land, if you translate into the native language into English, is Kuber, the tortoise, kurma, sorry, kurma, tortoise. So they believe that the Native Americans believe that below the tortoise is an ocean, and above the tortoise he's holding the earth together, and that is America. That is the traditional view of all the Native Americans put together. So
But
one question,
I have a very let's say it's a relativist view, because it was still a Stone Age society before the Europeans landed, and it was extraordinarily violent. Okay, so that still doesn't justify Europeans coming and committing genocide out there.
Yeah, that's what I'm
I
saying.
think it's very wrong to sit around and glorify pre-Columbian America as some idyllic, lovely, spiritual land, which it clearly was not.
See, the I have calculated it, and we'll be digressing it. So just forgive me, all the audience, because you guys, we were having nice conversations. So we'll go back to that. I was just calculating in my book. You can read that, where I have given 14 million Native Americans in just northeastern states and southern southeastern Canada, like today's Canada. 14 million is calculated just in those states. I'm not talking about other states. So the that's the kind of genocide we're talking about, Native Americans. So one question was asked by my friend over there, whom I know him for a very long time, about this discussion. He said, have you, his question was, have you considered the innocent children of Ukraine, or parents or families who will be broken by your action by of supporting providing weapons to fight against a country they cannot fight militarily?
See, this is a very wrong argument. This is like saying the Aztecs and the Mayas, they should have just caved and just surrendered to this thing. Ukraine has a right to defend itself. And if Ukraine wants weapons, Ukraine needs to get those weapons. Okay. The question is to what end? Because you also need a stable Ukraine after that. You can't have a Afghanistan after that. And if Zelensky is the horse that you've is the sort of racehorse that you've chosen, best of luck to you, because you know it's not going to end well for you. So Ukraine, I would much rather have them fight if they want to than not fight. That is a choice for them to make. And the government that they elected, which they did overwhelmingly, elected Zelensky for better or worse, to take. And they've chosen to fight. Good for them. They're heroes. Good. They're defending their homeland. Defend it, whatever it takes.
See the
And I did not expect a Native American to be making that argument.
no, but the people are concerned about the life and others. But you are right. Also, they have right to defend. But at the same time, I mean, you answered it also. To what end? Like whether you will have a nation left, or you are going to lose the nation also. There are multiple ways of attaining the same objective. One of the question which has come from the audience now is, and I wanted to ask you in any way. So the in the forum over there, many of the students who are here were in the forum as well. Some of them were there. The morality, the thinking that American moral standards are very high, and no other part of the world has the same moral standards. So when the state policy was being discussed, they said that only America can bring peace in the world today. And the viewpoint, if you look at the Chinese and the Indians and the Southeast Asians, non-Abrahamic bloc, if you look at that, so but their viewpoint, world viewpoint, is totally different. So what do you think about this moral upmanship which is
I think
prevalent?
it's a very uniquely European view. Whatever Europe does, they believe they've got something unique to offer the world. When they were all fascists, they believed fascism was their gift to the world. And Britain was also quite fascist at one point of time. Extreme nationalism, ethno-religious nationalism, and crap like that. When they were proselytizing Christians, they believed Christianity is Europe's gift to the world. Then democracy is Europe's gift to the world. We'll bomb the shit out of you so that you accept democracy. This is a European disease to think that, and it's an inferiority complex born thing. Because if you're comfortable in your skin, you don't have to go around, it's like a guy with a big dick. A guy with a big dick doesn't have to go around telling, yo, buddy, I have a big dick. Yo, do you want a big dick? Talk to me. I'll tell you how to grow your dick. I have a big dick. I have a big dick. My dick is huge. My dick is monumental. It's like the Leaning Tower of Pisa. It's like the Cleopatra's Needle. It's like the Empire State Building. Have you ever seen a man with a big dick going around talking like that? Usually, it's a man with a small dick that goes around talking like that. And for me, this need to proselytize, oh, the power for peace that NATO brings, the power for peace that the EU brings, it's a fundamental inferiority complex somewhere. This need to proselytize is fundamentally a character defect. It's fundamentally an inferiority complex.
You're right, because it is a and see, I understand one thing for all the viewers. Our channel is a little bit different, goes to the students as well. We cannot ask many questions here. The one of the questions which comes, your assessment is right, because the morality, when you make an argument, then it has to be, morality has to be human level, not politics cannot be included in that.
Yeah.
If you, the moment you include politics, then you're done. And you're right, Europeanism has destroyed many countries in the past. World War I, World War II, India has been a part of that also. So one of the questions which comes in, the India has good relations with Russia, which they're never going to stop. I don't think so it's going to happen in any government in
But
India.
actually, you know what happened is uh, a lot of Indian channels have been told to restrict the number of Western films and start showing a lot of Russian films and things. And in fact, Devendra Fadnavis, who, if anybody knows India and the BJP hierarchy, is very close to the top, even though he's the deputy chief minister of Maharashtra state, which is India's most economically powerful state. He was in Moscow a few weeks back, tying up deals between Russia's film industry and India's film industry. Now, tell me something. In the middle of all this turmoil, why would you land up in Russia for films? Clearly, something's happening, right? We've been buying Russian oil like nobody's business. We've been trying to help Russia indirectly in as many ways as possible. And I'm quite happy we're doing that. I'm quite happy we're doing that because it's not our fight. Remember, Pakistan does to us on a daily basis what Russia is doing to Ukraine. Pakistan's done to us for 70 years what Russia has been doing to Ukraine since 2014. And yet, America is giving them a $450 million F-16 sustenance package. Heck, I think we should be giving Russia a bloody arms sustenance package.
Is it true that Russian forces are using Iranian drones? Because a lot of news items
Yes,
have come out.
yes, because Russian weapons are shit. I mean, it tells you that if Iranian weapons are good enough for the Russians, how much crap the Russians have.
So how will the Indian drones compare to the Russian ones and the Iranian ones?
Look, Indian drones are a bit like a smelly fart. Iranian drones are drones. They're not the best, but they do what they're required to do.
See, one of the things which has come up in the recently is the Indian foreign minister and Indian fiscal policies have made a lot of news in the USA in a praise, like that India has instituted. Now, first time I saw some comments actually by the panelists that India has a very strong financial system, and unlike China, unlike it is, they said is on par with American and European systems. This is the conversation which is I heard. Now, how far you think is true? Because India has launched their own RuPay, India has launched many alternative payment systems which have been huge success, like the
Mm.
UPI digital transactions.
The thing is, you can have all of that. The problem is your regulatory forces are fundamentally corrupt, inefficient, and flawed. Your fiscal planning and fiscal policies are fundamentally unsound. That being the case, you can have a temporary stability bubble, but it's not particularly going to be very solid or good. So, if they're saying all of this, it's actually the exact opposite of what I'm hearing sitting in India. But great, they should invest in India. I won't invest in India. I'm very clear about this. If you want to go ahead,
Americans who are investing abroad in a large way, because stock markets in America have been performing very badly for last almost 2 years now.
yes, the question is, do you want to jump from the frying pan into the fire?
Yeah, it is performing badly, and I think most of the American citizens cannot directly invest in Indian economic system right now. You have to go through American mutual funds or something like that. last question of the series today, last question, and is that if we look at the world 3 months down the line or 6 months down the line, you must be, because you are in the strategic affairs space, you must be analyzing it. What will be the world should be preparing for in next 3 months or 6 months down the line,
I don't know,
financially,
3 months, six
politically?
months, but the longer this Ukraine stuff goes on, the higher the risk of a nuclear, of some kind of a nuclear event,
Thank you
right?
so
And
much.
the only thing I see is that China, in spite of being stuck in a middle income trap, you can be a third rater and, or in China's case, a second rater. The true third rater is India. China is still a second rater. Uh, you can be a second rater and still win if the first rater chooses to blow themselves up.
Thank you so much, Abhijit, for the time today, and also for all the viewers for asking good questions. And I hope you saw Abhijit's serious side today on solutions. And so thank you very much for joining it. And thank you, Abhijit, for coming on the show. So I'll see you next time. Namaste. Bye.